welcome to They Said We Said. This is the Orzhov done doing another Magic deck tech. This is going to Modern. We're doing Modern Eldrazi Tron. So we're going to start this week with the mana base as we do. We are running the full suite of Urza lands. So that's going to be the Tron pieces as they are known by. And that's going to be 4 Urza's Tower. Add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool if you control Urza's Mine, Tower, and Power Plant. Add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Now that's true. It adds 3 for the Tower, and then the if you have all 3 pieces assembled, if you have the Tower adds 3, the Power Plants add 2, and the Mine adds 2 as well. So we have 4 Urza's Tower. And the next we have Urza's Power Plant. And again, it's the same thing, but the Power Plants in the Mine add 2 as long as you control all 3 different types of Urza land. So we're running a playset of the Power Plant. Then we have a playset of the Mines as well. And the point of this deck is really just to assemble your Tron pieces as fast as possible, then cast your big fatties and kind of take over the game from there. It is a colorless deck. We're running the full colorless Eldrazi list. So we have the full playset of Eldrazi Temple. I almost view this as like the fourth Tron land almost. This reads tap to add a colorless mana to your mana pool, or tap add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast colorless spells, Eldrazi spells, or activate abilities of Eldrazi's. So if you have an Eldrazi card in your hand, you could tap that. These tap for 2 instead of 1, which is pretty great. And then we have a 1-of Sanctum of Ugin. This one reads, whenever you cast a colorless spell with converted mana cost 7 or greater, you may sacrifice Sanctum of Ugin. If you do, search your library for a colorless creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So the point of this card, it taps for 1 colorless, and it also, once you start getting your Tron pieces assembled and your Eldrazi temples out, once you start casting the big fatties, it just kind of sacrifices and gets you another one. So if one giant Eldrazi isn't enough, hey, why not more? So then we're running a playset of Ghost Quarter. Now this takes care of opposing Tron lands. So then we're running a 3-of Waste. Now these are actually super relevant. So these kind of are there to counteract Path to Exile, and you're playing huge creatures and big scary Eldrazi, so your creatures are going to get Path to Exiled, all the time. So this is there to kind of counteract the downside for your opponent of the Path to Exile. And in traditional decks, you could go search up a basic land. You wouldn't think that you would be able to in a colorless Eldrazi deck, but you can with this one because it has that basic land type. So at least when they're exiling your fatties, you do still get a basic land, and you still get to ramp into your next big Eldrazi piece. So now we're going to go to the creatures. We're going to start with Endless One, and we're running a 3-of Endless One. So Endless One kind of got hosed a little bit when Eye of Ugin got banned. But they're still pretty good. If you have a hand with 1 Endless One and 2 Eldrazi Temples, that's kind of not a bad deal, because you could drop a 4/4 on turn 2, and that's pretty hard to overcome. And plus, the Endless One is even if you have to cast it for 1 or 2, it's still there kind of as an early chump blocker until you get your other pieces going. Speaking of roadblocks, we have a 2-of Spellskite, the only non-Eldrazi creature in the deck. It has a huge butt, 2 for an 0/4, plus it just negates their first removal, basically. So it takes on all kinds of instants and sorceries redirected to it instead of your big, more valuable creatures. We don't have any blue in the deck, so we are going to pay the 2 life every time we use the ability. Then we have the Matter Reshaper, and this is it's a nice curve we have going on. You could basically a 1-drop, 2-drop, and here's our 3-drop. And this is the Matter Reshaper. He is 3 for a 3/2. When Matter Reshaper dies, reveal the top card of your library. You put that card onto the battlefield if it's a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less. Otherwise, put that card in your hand. So at the very worst, if you whiff on a Matter Reshaper, at least you get to draw a card out of the deal. Otherwise, your you're slamming either a land, so you're ramping, or another matter reshaper, or something else. So, and then we have one of the all-stars of the deck. This is the Thought-Knot Seer. This is 4 for a 4/4. When Thought-Knot Seer enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it and exile that card. And then when Thought-Knot Seer leaves the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. So, yeah, that sucks. You know, they get a card if they get to remove it, but 4 for a 4/4 is a good rate. You could usually drop this on turn 2 regularly, and you get to look at their hand and take their best thing. So take that Path to Exile that will remove him and let them draw a card, or take Collected Company or whatever is the problem. So really great creature. Next we have the Reality Smasher. This is just a huge beat stick. This is 5 for a 5/5. For Trample Haste, whenever Reality Smasher becomes the target of spell an opponent controls, counter that spell unless its controller discards a card. So really hard to remove, comes down, hits fast, hits hard. We're running a playset of the Reality Smasher. And I have got him out on turn 3 pretty regularly. Next, we have the Endbringer. So 6 for a 5/5. He gets to untap during each player's untap step. So he almost has pseudo vigilance. Also, tap it. Endbringer deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Tap 1 colorless. Tap it. Target creature can attack or block this turn. Or tap 2 colorless and tap it to draw a card. So he's great. He attacks well. He blocks well. He attacks. You know, he gets to untap during their untap step. He's 5/5, so no slouch there. And then the 1 damage target creature is very relevant. You could pick off, you know, a smaller creature or a utility creature, and then of course draw a card's very good. So at the end of, you know, you could attack, he untaps, at the end of their turn draw a card. He's really kind of a little engine that could, and we're running a full playset of the Endbringer. Next we have one of Oblivion Sower. He is 6 for a 5/8, so he's got that huge booty. When you cast Oblivion Sower, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of his or her library. Then you may put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield under your control. So this guy comes down, you get to exile the top 4 cards of their library, and any land that you exile, any land at all, you get to put in the battlefield under your control. So he's almost a pseudo ramp spell in itself. Next up, we have the big boss battle, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. He's 10 for a 10/10. When you cast him, you get to exile 2 permanents, so even if he's countered or whatever, you still get the exiling permanent trigger. He is indestructible, and whenever Ulamog attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of his or her library, so it's just a very, very fast clock. This guy is awesome. He's hard to get rid of, he's hard to stop, and he's really kind of the haymaker of the deck. So we're running a 1 of. More on the side. And then next we have Emrakul the Promised End. She is a 13/13 for 13 mana. Usually. Actually, I almost never cast her for 13 mana. She has kind of a pseudo delirium. She costs 1 generic mana less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. So I do believe in this deck we have 4 or 5 card types total. So I'm usually cast her for about 11 or 12. And still with Tron, if you just have the 3 Tron lands active, that's 7 mana right there, plus throw in an Eldrazi Temple or whatever else, you get mana pretty quick in this deck. So she comes out, and then she does the Mindslaver mechanic, where you take control of target player during their next turn, and then they get to take an extra turn after the turn that you controlled them. She also just has flying trample protection from instants, just in case, So big bad mama. So if I were to take this is kind of more of a F&M deck for me. So it is competitive, for sure. But it's not, if I went to a Grand Prix or something like that, I'd probably put this Emrakul in the board and probably put an Emrakul Aeon's Torn in the main. But for now, I'm very happy with her. So, and we're running a 1 of there. And the next one is Big Bad Voodoo Daddy himself. That's Ugin the Spirit Dragon. This is kind of our board reset. He does damage. He does he slices, he dices. He makes julienne fries. He's amazing. I'm thinking about getting another one just to put it in the main, maybe a board, but any kind of board state they have with creatures, you know, usually he drops down and just kind of clears it up. He is very amazing. So I love this card. He's our only Planeswalker in the deck. So this is Expedition Map, and we're running a 4 of. And this is to assemble our Tron pieces faster and more consistently. Also, sometimes I'll just grab an Eldrazi Temple with this as well. It reads tap 2, sacrifice it, and then search your library for a land card. That's any land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Next, we're going into our removal suite. This is Spatial Contortion. It's 1 and 1 generic mana, 1 colorless. Target creature gets +3, -3 until end of turn. So we're running a colorless deck. It's a colorless removal spell, and it does the trick. We're running a 3 of. After that, we have Warping Whale. This actually has performed a lot better than I thought it would. It's also 1 colorless and 1 generic mana. You get to choose 1. It's a modal spell. So the Warping Whale is actually really good. You could get a surprise chump blocker. You know, you could use it as a ramp piece, just because you could sacrifice the Scion. You could counter, you know, big board sweeps with the counter target sorcery spell ability, or the exiling. It's actually a really good toolbox card. We're running 2 of. And then the last card in the deck, this is our only colored spell, and this is Dismember. Target creature gets target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. So basically, it costs 1 and 2 Phyrexian black mana, so we have no black mana in here, just like with the Spellskite. We have no blue, we have no black in this deck either, so we're going to take damage. Basically, the card reads 1 generic and take 4 damage to kill a creature. So probably the correct thing, I had 2 Urborgs in here, but then, you know, at my local F&M I was running into some problems, so I kind of switched it up to do the 4 Ghost Quarters and the 2 Urborgs in the sideboard, but I'd probably just throw the Urborgs back in, and then have 2 Ghost Quarters in the side, run the 2 and 2, just because sometimes the life loss can be relevant on Dismember, but most of the time, you know, we don't really care about it, and it's still a fine spell. So that's it for today. Thank you for commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you next time. So guys, as I said before in our channel update video, I have a very special announcement. We are partnering up with Coach Goose and Zane, the wonderful folks at the Card Bazaar. These guys post some great gaming content, including the Card Anthology series and the Coach's Playbook. Check out their latest video that gives you a very insightful history lesson of the set Antiquities. Links in the description below, guys. Please subscribe and support their channel.